So we're joined from the studios of 16 WAPT Jackson by my friend, multimedia journalist, weekend anchor, and reporter Omose Ighodaro. Thank you so much for taking some time for us today. This is our college career readiness class. We're in the arts and audiovisual career cluster. I've got a room full here with me, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, my friends over at Rosa Scott, Madison Central, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you for fitting us in your busy schedule today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I must say, have you done radio before? Because that was an awesome introduction.
I have not, but I appreciate that. Now, we obviously want to talk about all the cool things that go on in the television industry, but just give us a little background because you are from Louisville, Kentucky, went to the
Yes.
University of Kentucky, so you're an SEC girl, and then got an Ivy League master's. So take us through that process because we have a lot of kids that want to go to these big SEC schools, and it's not just let's go to the football games and party. There's a lot of academic standards. So talk about your college experience and how that led you to get into this field, and your experience also up at Columbia.
All right. So you're taking me back. I may look young, but we're talking back now to joking. So we're gonna take it back to college. Yes, like you said, and thanks so much for looking that up and having a lot of already having a lot to say already. So we're talking about University of Kentucky. So I went to University of Kentucky. Just my sisters went there. I have two older sisters. They went there, and it's my hometown. I went. The University of Kentucky is in Lexington. I live in Louisville. I said I want to be away from home, but not too far away from home. So that was basically like the safe haven. It was like an hour and a half from Louisville, where I'm born and raised. So that being said, I basically followed my siblings there, and I was able to get a full 4-year scholarship there. So I did not pay for undergrad, thankfully. But that's just because if we're talking, this is high school, correct? That we're talking to.
Yeah.
So I didn't know, but that GPA matters in high school. So I know you have a lot of people who talk to you all, but yes, they're not lying. That GPA matters. But not just that, because these schools don't just want to see smart people. There are a lot of people smart, or if you're not born smart, you can be smart by studying and getting a grace. But they want to see leaders. So that entails service, community service. That entails joining these curricular activities, joining groups, leading the groups. I remember we had Scrabble Club, we had track team, we had intramural basketball, because if you're not really a basketball player, but you want to be a basketball player, join stuff like intramural basketball, which is what I did. And so not just join them, but be a leader, be the vice president or PR person, whatever other, what do you call it, roles there are. But make sure you do that and then put that on your resume, because they want to see a real well-rounded individual. That's what they always say. And that's something that we were hit hard with growing up in high school, so that when you do go to college and you do apply for these schools, not only do you get in, but you get scholarships, full ride scholarships, with the best thing to get, but any scholarship is a blessing. So like I said, start as your freshman, sophomore, senior. It's not too late. If you're a senior, go ahead and sign up for those extracurricular activities. So I would say that first. And so yes, I went to the University of Kentucky, and my first year I majored in journalism. Now I'm going to give you all a spin. So I majored in journalism, but this is a story, so I'll just say it. So someone told me, so it was a combination of my parents and also my advisor. So when I was in college, I was joking, it wasn't that long ago, but a lot of things were going on the internet. So my advisor told me, "Are you sure you want to do journalism? Because by the time you're out of college, everything's going to be on the internet, and it's going to be a dying field." I remember she said that. So guess what? I switched. I said, "Dying field? No, I don't want to like graduate and then not have a job." So I actually switched. So after my first semester of undergrad at University of Kentucky, I switched to business. So I actually have a business major, particularly business marketing. So I have a marketing major for undergrad. And the story is, not only that, this is a joke. So hopefully my parents don't take this the wrong way. But not only that, my heritage, as you can see, my name is Omose. I'm born and raised my heritage is Nigerian. So my parents are Nigerian, and inside the home, I was born and raised with a Nigerian culture inside the home. Obviously, I was born and raised in Kentucky, but my culture inside the home was Nigerian. So this is a running joke for all Nigerians, is that you either become a lawyer, a doctor, or business. And so when my parents heard journalism, they're like, "That's nice, but like, let's do something safer. Let's do business." So that's what they did, in combination with what I heard from my career advisor. So I switched to business. And what I was thinking at the time is that I love to talk to people. I love to get to know people's stories, but I can also do that as a marketer, right? Because in marketing, you do talk to people, but it's just on a different level. So I did that, and I still wanted to be close to media. So after college, I did some other jobs. My most recent job was 3 years at a TV station, and I was actually in the sales side of the TV world. So I was working at a TV station in my hometown in Kentucky for about 3 years, and I was in sales. I was helping to, help companies do their advertising and, get the commercials on the air and do all that jazz. So I did that. I was happy. It was good. I loved what I did. On the side, I said, let me run my own company as a journalist because I still wanted to feel that passion. And so I started my own company. I started my own media company called AfroVibesMedia.com or AfroVibes Media. It's particularly AfroVibes.com. And that was just a hobby initially. And so I don't know how to make this short, but I'll try to make it short. So I told you all that I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky. Obviously, there's not a lot of Nigerian people to Nigerian parents. And so growing up, I kind of shied away from my culture just because of the schools I went to, the neighborhood I lived in. It was majority American, particularly white American. And so I was just growing up, you just want to fit in. Everyone goes through that. And so I'm like, never really been to Nigeria, never been to Africa at the time. So I was like, I shied away from the culture. But I will say my parents were very adamant to make sure we knew about our culture. So it took me to go, until college when I actually met people who were born and raised from Nigeria. And I remember they found out because of my name. They said, "Are you Nigerian?" And they were like, "Yes." So basically, long story short, they kind of taught me and showed me the things that I was shying away from as in high school. They said, "No, we have music, we have good food, we have good, music was actually something that really gravitated me towards the culture." So that being said, I was like, there's a lot of people like me, not just people from Nigeria, but a lot of first generations, what we call it, first generation Americans, those who were born in America from parents who may be international, who do not know about their culture. And so I was like, I was growing up shying away from something that I think now I love, which is the Nigerian culture. And so I started that platform to talk about the things that were positive coming out of the continent. Obviously, there also are some negative things coming out of any country, any continent, but I wanted to also highlight the positive. And because I really gravitated towards the music, that is what I focused on in my company. Because I said, if there are people like me, and if I was the one to use music to get closer to my culture, then there are many other people who could do the same thing. So I took it a step further. I started interviewing the Rihannas and Chris Browns out of the continent because I just kept making more and more connections. And I was interviewing the top celebrities and putting it on my platform and using that to promote the positive things coming out of the continent. So I did that for a while. And again, this was a hobby. And so I told you this was a long story, but I'm going to get to the end. And then until in 2018, I said, I've been talking about Nigeria, but I've never been to Nigeria. This is a problem. Maybe I should just go there because now it's like I'm what we call parachute journalists, people who are talk about a continent or a country and never been there. So I said, let me go there. And so one day, I'm not kidding. One day I bought a ticket. I won't tell you how much it was. I bought a ticket and my friends allowed me to go stay with some of their relatives and people that I trusted. And so I went and I picked up a mic, picked up a camera, and I just filmed and did interviews with a lot of people that that was nice enough to talk to me. So there were business people, there were celebrities, musicians. And then that's when I started posting that's when my website took off. And so I was working in the sales side, and then I had AfroVibes. And then one day I was like, well, this is taking off. Maybe, and then I taught myself. I should tell you all. I taught myself everything from YouTube. So I hope y'all know that. Basically, I want to get to is whatever you want to do, you'll do it. We have a lot of resources these days. And so I taught myself how to edit on Premiere Pro using YouTube. Yep. And that's how I was able to edit, and that's how I was able to learn how to do interviews. I Googled stuff. And so teaching myself little by little all the soft skills on how to be a journalist, I was able to grow my platform, get a lot of views, thousands of viewers on my YouTube. And then I said, well, this is growing. And so as I was doing that, my passion for journalism increased. I was like, well, I thought I was close enough to close enough to the media industry by being in sales and TV. But what if I actually became the journalist? I think I could do that. So what I wanted to do in high school, because I always wanted to be a journalist in high school, I actually did the morning news for my high school. So everyone knew I wanted to be a journalist, but then that switched when I got to college. So I went back. And so I said, I'm a believer. So I said, I'm going to apply to the best school there is, in my opinion, which is Columbia University. I've always wanted to do my master's. I always wanted to live in New York City. Now, this is me living in Kentucky. And so I said, if I get into this, that means I should have been a journalist a long time ago. This is the longer way to do it. And so obviously I got in, and so that's how I became a journalist. I got in, and I have a master's in journalism from Columbia University. I'm very thankful for that. And I'll stop there. And then in journalism, even though I knew how to do some of the edit, Premiere Pro and how to be a journalist, obviously that just took it a step further. How to write, how to be a better interviewer, how to edit faster, and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned about I think it's important to recognize there's two prominent Nigerian journalists on ESPN right now, Roz Gold and Shanae Agumake, which both do an amazing job, which shows the face of journalism is changing. Now, you told that story how you got into it. You spent some time in Roanoke, at in Virginia, and you've been in Jackson just a few months. And we watched some of your pieces, and I was explaining to them, look, she's not just talking. You have to learn how to film, you have to learn how to edit, you have to learn how to talk, and you have to be able to tell stories that may not be your peak interest, but the interest to the community. And you mentioned some of the celebrities you've met. Anytime you are in journalism, you have to be the professional in the room. It's not the time for you to fangirl or fanboy. It's not the time for you to be the person stirring up controversy. You have to be the one that's professional, asking the questions that people want to hear, and you can't let your personal feelings get in the way. You may have to interview a politician that you don't necessarily agree with, but if it's a local issue, people want to hear it. So talk about drawing that line and being able and having to do so many things besides just, hey, when the news starts, we're on TV.
Yeah, and I'll get to that, but also I want to, and thanks for that. I want to actually premise real quick. I think it's important to tell your students. Yes, before I got to Roanoke, before I got on TV, I was actually a writer. So after college, I actually wrote my first inning in journalism was at Bloomberg News as a writer. And then after that, I worked with BBC as a writer, and I did some freelance work with Inc. magazine. So I don't want to skip over the writing part. And why I want to say that is because I actually ended up merging business and journalism. So I was a business journalist. So I want to say that you don't have to pick one. And I didn't know that for a long time. You can have a lot of passions and find a way to merge it. I think that's very important because for a long time I thought I had to either pick journalism or pick business, but I liked sales and I liked journalism. So I was able to, for a while, work at a business company as a business journalist at Bloomberg and the BBC. I interviewed CEOs and I was doing stories on business topics. So you don't have to always pick one. So I think that's very important. And so yes, after I was writing for a while, I always wanted to be a TV reporter. But because that was the first job I got out of college, I took it, and obviously it's a good role. So that's another tip. You may want to be an astronaut, but you have to take the steps in order to get to be an astronaut, right? So I obviously didn't move away from all the things I needed to do in order to get to where I wanted to be. So that, like you said, so after a writer, I wanted to do TV, and so I was an MMJ in Roanoke, Virginia, at a station there. And MMJ just means multimedia journalist, where I had to be the cameraman, I had to be the writer, I had to be the person in the TV, and I had to be behind the TV. Basically, you're doing everything. A one-man job is what we always say, and I'm sure you all heard that before. So your question was how to be professional when you're interviewing politicians and different types of people. You know what? I'm going to say something. There's a professional aspect to it, but there's also a level of being conversational, being yourself, being relatable.
Oh, big time.
And I think that's one of my strong suits is that you can be professional, but in order to also build rapport, because you're asking them to tell them your stories. And some of them are sad stories, when you're going into, you're reporting on a fire, this family just lost their house. Do they want to talk to you about that? It's like, and you have to come in a way not just professional, but also relatable. So it's just like you have to merge the two. And I've had to do that a lot where I'm like, okay, my professional side is I need to get the story because this this is a story that people are going to want to know in the neighborhood. What happened, how did it start? They want to learn from it, but also relatable because this is the whole family who just lost their house, and they know I'm just coming in like they're going to look at you like, what do you want? And so that's my tip. Learn how to be professional, but also relatable. And I think that's how you get people to trust you. And so with that story, not only did I cover it, I made sure that they knew that I was genuine. I got their number. I'm not saying get everybody's number. I got their number afterwards. I followed up with that family. I said, anything you need, we will help you. On a personal side, if there's a GoFundMe, I can personally donate. Just let them know that you're not just that journalist coming in for the story. You actually care. And I think that's a big deal. That's what sets you apart as a journalist. Do they, one, are they just here for the story? Do they actually care about the community? Two, are they going to do a story that's accurate? And as a viewer, can we trust this person and what she's saying, or is she biased because she maybe, like you said, maybe she likes this celebrity, so she's going to be biased and say the good things about this celebrity. But what if the celebrity did something bad? You have to be able to put your personal feelings aside about whatever celebrity you may fan over and report that story. So yes, you have to be professional. You have to be accurate. You have to be honest. You have to be genuine. And that's what sets you apart as a journalist. When people know that they can trust you, that goes far. And also, not the viewers want to trust you, and the people you interview want to also trust you. And that's just that starts with your personality, to be honest. Are you relatable? Are you honest? Are you kind? And are you professional? But I think it's not just I think it's all the above. And hopefully I answered that question right.
No, that's fine. And they're getting ready to hand me some. But before I get to those, I did want to talk about, you mentioned sales. There's all kind of different avenues. You don't necessarily have to be the person in front of the camera. And also, there's people that work overnight. So if you want to have a nighttime job, there's people that are writing scripts, updating the website, preparing things. And then state of Mississippi has a lot of great programs. Southern Miss has a great broadcast journalism program that doesn't necessarily only train people in front of the camera. Mississippi State with broadcast meteorology, one of the leaders in the nation. Ole Miss and Jackson State, both with great mass communication departments, as well as Alcorn. And then Hines Community College, one of our Velma Jackson alums, runs that program. So, you hear that and you think, well, I don't want to be a news anchor. Well, you don't have to be. Talk about some of the different areas of news, of television news that people may not see, but need skilled people in.
That's very well said. Yeah, because like you said, you can be in sales, you can be MMJ like I was in Virginia, and now I'm the weekend anchor and also reporter here at WAPT News in Jackson, Mississippi. But there's also producers. They have a huge role. They're the ones who actually put the newscast together. And so if you like to produce, they do a lot of writing. So if you like to write, that's awesome. Or if you like to do the camera operator, you can also do that. Or there's even people who master control, who basically control the whole newscast and make sure what's supposed to be on air and pressing the button. I don't know everything, but there's different roles. And there's also photographers. So those are the people who are behind the camera. Like I said, if you like doing camera operations, they're the ones who make sure we look good on TV. And that requires lighting. That requires knowing how to work a camera. That requires audio. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and it's a team effort, because it's not just the person that you're seeing on TV. I have a lot of people around me who are making sure things run accurately. And if that doesn't work, then I don't look good. And so it's not just, I would say, everyone thinks, even as a kid, you think it's this glamorous job. That's person on TV. But it's a lot of team effort. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of planning. It's a lot of running around trying to get the stories and making sure you know what you're going to say on TV. And it's a lot of studying, a lot of research. And so I just say, if you want to do this field like any other field, you need a tough work ethic, and also at the same time knowing how to be calm under pressure, but also having a smile and being professional.
Yeah, and big shout out to my man John Parker, the retired news director there at WAPT. I'm sure you've heard of him. Been retired for a couple of years now, but he was never in front of the camera, but just really wanted to develop people to be a great journalist and great, and just bring the information to the people. And like we said, like you just mentioned, he never spent 1 second in front of the camera, but he had such a huge role in bringing the news to Jackson. So
Yeah.
that could be
Like
any of
you,
these kids.
like you
Uh,
said, there's also managerial roles as well. And that's obviously a big deal. If you like to be a manager, you like to be the leader, like you say, you can be a news director. So,
Big time. Well, I do have a few questions here. I love this first one. This is Joshua Williamson. He's in ninth grade, one of our football and baseball players here.
hey,
Also a member
Joshua,
of our
hey,
of our
Josh.
own digital media academy here at Velma Jackson. And he asked, "You made the change from being off camera to on camera. So your first time on live television, how did you know that you would be confident and strong, or were you a little scared?"
That's a great question, Joshua. Thank you for that. It's funny because I actually posted as I made a Facebook post about the first time, and that wasn't that long ago. And what my Facebook post said was, I was nervous, but I can't mess up because this is the moment I have been working towards, and I want to make my mom and parents happy.
That's
So
awesome.
I'll end with this: we all have our whys. Why do you want to be a journalist? Why do you want to be a producer? Why do you want to be a news director? And so when when stuff gets hard, or when you have those days where you just want to cry and go home, or you're having a bad day, you remember your why. Why did I want to do this? And that always keeps you going. My why is that I want to tell stories about the community. Most of the times, the stories that are untold. For Afro Vibes, it was those diverse stories that we never hear about because we always hear about the negative sides of Africa. For here, it's telling those diverse stories because we obviously live in a diverse community, and making sure people know that I care about their stories to tell them accurately if they have, if they have anything that they want to share with me personally. So that is key because it's not easy. Nothing's easy. Whether you're a journalist or not, whatever you all grow up to be, you're gonna have those days, and you're gonna be like, what is in your what is, you have to remind yourself, like, why did I want to do this? And that keeps you going. And so I have a lot of whys. One of my whys is just making my parents proud and being the best journalist I can be for the community of Jackson. And every day you come into work, or you know and you have one of those days, or it even could just be make your manager proud. Just pick your why. Is it your manager? Is it your mentor? I always have a mentor. I also have mentors that I want to make proud, and I want to make myself proud. So that's what you think about when you have those nervous days or you have those tough days. And I kid you not, it works every time.
That's awesome. I love this one. This is Turkala Chambers. She's in 10th grade, one of our volleyball players here at Velma Jackson. And she asked, how do you build trust with an audience when there has been increasingly growing skepticism of the media?
Great question. What's her name? What did you say her name was?
Turkala Chambers.
Takala, thank you for that question. That is a great question because yeah, we all know some people don't like journalists, but set yourself apart. And that goes back to what I said is being yourself. I can't overstate that. It sounds easy enough, but being yourself. When I walk into rooms, I met the governor of Mississippi yesterday, and before there's a lot of us. All the media people are there running the interview. I took 1 second to be like, "Hey, Governor, I'm Omose. I'm new. I'm about 2, 3 months in here." And then he's like, "Oh, hi. What's you're new." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, my hometown is Louisville, Kentucky." And I kind of made 1, 2 jokes quickly, but it's good because now he knows that I am here to do the interview, but I also want to be relatable, a little bit personable. I want you to kind of get to know my name at least, or where I'm from, and you do that each time. It's not every time you have time to do that, but just doing those little things help because each time you do that, you're being more relatable. They're going to know who you are the next time you see them, and they're going to continue to trust you because maybe another thing I do is sometimes I send my article to those that I interviewed. I get their email or phone number, and I send them the article. So a lot of people don't follow up. So, and then they watch the story, they like it, and then they see that, oh, I did a good job, or I did it accurately. And so then they're going to contact me for the next story. So it's doing little tricks or little things to keep yourself, set yourself apart, and people know that you're relatable, and you're not just that journalist out there who comes and goes, and then they don't hear from you again.
Love it. I got time for two more. This is Tanaya Willis. She's in ninth grade. And she asked, what advice would you give someone that wanted to be in the news field?
What advice? This is advice I give everybody. In news field or astronaut, I keep saying astronaut. I don't know why that keeps going in my head. Honestly, if no one else has told you, you can do whatever you want. And I'm not just saying that nonchalantly. I'm serious. You can do whatever you want. I wanted to be in news. I wanted to be on TV. I'm on TV. My sisters want to be a doctor. She's a doctor. The other one wanted to do this. Like, I remember I had a young cousin who wanted to be a pharmacist. She wasn't, you know, and then one day I said, oh, I met this person who's a pharmacist and he went to this school. Maybe you should apply to this school. Now she's a pharmacist. Like if someone tells you no, to say, okay, thank you, and then knock on the next door. I promise you, if you want whatever you want to do, if you want to be on a news, you want to be in journalism, you can do it. But then don't just want to be in journalism. Find your reason. Because it's hard work. It's not just glamorous. Find your reason to want to be a journalist and then stick to that. You know, if it's to tell good stories about the community, then stick to that. And I promise you, if it's Columbia or if it's University of Kentucky or if it's somewhere in Alabama or in Jackson, go wherever you need to go to get to where you want to be. And do not close yourself off because doors close. Make sure either you find another one or you create one. I created my own business, and then from there, that's what got me into Ivy League because I started my own company and I went to Nigeria and and that's what got me to Columbia. I didn't have a degree before that. Most people had an undergraduate degree in journalism. I did not. So if you didn't hear anything today, either you make your own path or make sure you knock on many doors in order to get there.
Wow, love it. And I got one more. This is Avery Harris. She's in 10th grade. She actually just had to leave, but she's one of our volleyball players and is competing in the state archery meet today. And she asked, how do you keep your composure on camera when it is an emotional story?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, sometimes you don't. Sometimes we're on camera for a couple seconds and then you go and you start crying. I don't know. Or but I guess that's part of the job. That's like asking a doctor how do they keep their composure when somebody comes in with harsh wounds. Unfortunately, that is part of the job. You keep your composure when there's a fire and you're seeing everyone crying. It is sad, but if you watch some of my stories, even in the middle of my interview, I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." That's like, I'm trying to like keep it in myself because they're crying and stuff, and sometimes it is hard. I'll just say you do what you got to do. At the end of the day, it is a job, but it's also you know what you're reporting about, and maybe after the cameras turn off, that's when you console whoever you're talking with even more, which happens all the time. But you try to balance it. On camera, you can be that personal person, but then when the camera shuts off, you don't know what goes on behind the scenes. I'm like hugging people and making sure the family is okay and getting their number and trying to do what I can to show empathy. Because like I keep saying, empathy, being professional is awesome, but also being that relatable journalist that people can count on is also just as important.
Love it. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for joining us. But a couple things before we go. First of all, afrovibes.com is your platform. Your YouTube and Instagram links are on there for that. Really cool stuff on there. If somebody's looking for some ideas and some cool stories that maybe don't get as much coverage in the mainstream media, you've done a great job there. I encourage everybody to go to afrovibes.com and also tell us, everybody, where they can see you on WAPT.
Yeah, actually, thanks for that. But I am here representing WAPT. AfroVibes is kind of now on the back corner. But I am representing WAPT. I am the weekend anchor and the morning news reporter. So from Monday to Wednesday, I'm the morning news reporter on 6 o'clock, 6:30, no, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and 6:30. And then sometimes I run packages. And then on the weekends, I'm also on in the morning from in the morning. I don't like what 8 o'clock. Yes, 8 o'clock. So you can watch me in the mornings. I'm also on before 8 o'clock from 5 to 6, and then also 8 o'clock. So make sure you watch us. We appreciate you, Channel 16, and you have my email as well. So if you have any other questions, be sure to reach out.
Yeah, and obviously I follow you on Facebook, all the news updates you're giving. But the last thing before we go, and you mentioned about kind of you don't see a lot of Nigerian Americans in this space, and I'm glad you mentioned first generation Americans. We have a lot of first generation Americans in our district of all backgrounds. There is a need for them in this field. If you're bilingual, no matter what language that is, if you have a different culture, our demographics of our community is changing every day. So the demographics of the people covering those communities needs to represent that. So no matter what gender you are, no matter what color you are, no matter where your family came from, there's a place for you. So talk about why, as we close up here, why do these kids, but maybe you don't see a lot of them in this field, really need to consider being a part of it?
I love that point. You need to consider being a part of it because there are people like you, like I said earlier, who also want their stories told. And they're looking for someone like yourself to be that person that they can trust to tell their stories accurately and fairly. Like I said, there are problems in Nigeria. That's right. But we shouldn't be only talking about the problems. So they're looking for people like me who can also talk about the positive side. So just like yourself and wherever your culture is or demographic is, people are looking up to you to talk about, hey, it's not just crime here. We also have X, Y, Z. And you can be that person that they can count on, that they can trust, and they can share their stories with. So I think it is necessary for they're waiting for you. So you should come on through and become journalists.
Absolutely. And again, everybody download the 16 WAPT app, see some of your work, and on the WAPT website, a lot of your great stories as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Omose Ighodaro, 16 WAPT News. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Greg, for having me, and thanks for the invite. And again, reach out via email if you have any more questions. I'll be happy to answer them.
Awesome. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.
See ya.